Well, hi everyone. Welcome to another 30 Goals Inspiring Keynote. We have Jo Hart with us. She's in Australia. Uh, Jo, do you want to say hi to everybody before you begin your presentation? And then I'll let them know a little more about you.
Yep. Hi, everybody. It's 6 o'clock in the morning here. So I know you guys are all over the world, and I know that for most of you, it's probably evening. So I'm awake. You guys are thinking of going to bed. Shelley?
Well, let me tell you a little about Jo, and actually I can tell you quite a bit because the reason I asked Jo to be a part of this is she's one of the first people to help me with my goals. She's been helping me organize conferences and training, and also kind of showed me how to work better online so you can be prepared for an interactive session. And I had the privilege of spending time with her this year in Australia. Let me let you know a little about her. She has background in science, and also her experience has been very invaluable. Since 2007, she has been a skills lecturer. She also does a lot of online training, technology. Major part of her, she uses technology as a major part of her toolkit for teaching adult literacy and numeracy. And she does this face-to-face and online. She also was part of this series on EduBlogs where they have constant online presentations that any teacher could join. She has a wonderful blog called E-Everything. For me, she is a role model on what e-learning should be. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to her so she has plenty of time. Oh.
Thank you, Shelley. That's a bit of a... Now you've given me a challenge, haven't you, to live up to what you just said about me. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. If you put comments in chat wings and questions in chat wings, that's great. I'm very happy. I will try and answer them, but I know that Judy's monitoring everything anyway, so let's get going. I hope you can all see my screen share. Double check that it looks like you can.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I found quite difficult about this was that I felt I really should match it to some goals, some 30 goals, and it wasn't hard because it didn't relate to the goals, but it was hard because there were so many that I felt it did relate to. Because bouncing back, resilience and survival as an educator is something that really fits in with most of the goals, I guess. And as Shelley said, she came to stay with us briefly back in June, and she did me the honour of asking me to be one of the keynotes for the 30 Goals e-conference when she was staying with us. And that was in June this year, and it was a really exciting few days. Shelley's been a PLN friend via Twitter, webinars, and more recently Facebook since early 2009, and this was our first meeting for real. I don't think we ever stopped talking for those few days, and one of the things that we did talk about was resilience. And as you can see, nice little picture of kangaroos because they're very typical for Australia, and a little pointer to where I am in Australia. And Australia's a big place, so if you go to the East Coast, don't expect to be close to where I live on the West Coast. Okay, the roots of this session go back a very long time. In 2010, I read a blog post from Shelley about the stresses and pressures on teachers. And I felt I'd got too much to say about it to put it all in a comment, so I wrote a post of my own. And since then, I've seen, both via my PLN and my colleagues at work, the increasing pressures and stresses on all of us across all sectors, not just in schools, but in universities and in my own area, which is public vocational education in Western Australia. All the time, I'm seeing people struggling to survive. Some of us do, some of us don't. People stop teaching, change careers and opt out completely. Or we just hang in there. What makes the difference? Why? What can we do to help us survive? And another of my things that I regularly use are to-dos. Use them a lot with my literacy students because students love to make cartoons and it's a good way to get them writing. Okay, so there we go. The answer for me is resilience. That's our ability to adapt to stress and adversity. And just as our Australian bush bounces back after bushfires, so we need to survive and move on in the face of challenges. And for me, our bush is a bit of a metaphor for the way we all are resilient. And you can see that the pictures I've used here, one was a bushfire very close to us about 5 years ago, and the same picture of the same spot now 5 years later. So we can survive, we can be more resilient, and we can support our students in the educator community, our colleagues in the educator community to be more resilient. That helps us all do a better job supporting our students and being better role models for them. Okay, we face lots of challenges. Because the system, as Shelley said in the opening address, is full of things that don't appreciate teachers. And these contribute to those challenges. There's a fairly universal lack of respect for educators. When I was growing up, if I was ever in trouble at school, I was in trouble at home as well. And that probably goes for a lot of us. There's a lack of trust. We're not really treated as professionals with ethical standards of our own. And a colleague said to me years ago, we're the only people who are judged on the performance of others, over whom we've got no sanctions, no control for non-performance. You know, if you're in a job and you don't perform, your boss has sanctions. If it comes to it, he can fire you. We can't fire our students. I think there's a degree of jealousy. People tend to assume that teaching is an easy life because of the length of the teaching day and the teaching year. They don't recognise all the stuff that we do outside those teaching days and teaching years. I remember being shocked as around about a 12-year-old when I went to the home of one of my teachers, and his small apartment was piled up with exercise books to mark. And until then, I had not realised how much work teachers did. Providing learning opportunities for 30 different people all at the same time is really hard work. And there's never enough time in the system. There's never enough time for preparing properly. So again, we use our own time. And of course, at the moment, we've also got the excess focus on testing. Teaching to the test, one size fits all, and all those other ramifications. And ever increasing and difficult to comply with policies, paperwork, documentation, administration. And lastly, one that's a real issue for me. Everyone who's ever been a learner thinks they're more qualified to pontificate on education than we are as educators. Okay, now as some of you probably know, I'm utterly passionate about always having audience interaction in my online sessions, and I always have to push the boundaries. So I hope this works. I'm going to share this link, hopefully. To chat rooms, and I hope you guys will visit the link. Now you might be better off copying and pasting rather than clicking on it, because it can be a bit unpredictable. But please go visit the link and add your own comments about your particular challenges I'm just going to give you a moment or two to see if anybody can dive in there and put something up. Okay, I'll move on in a moment. But if anybody has the time, okay. Refresh. Which bit, Shelley? That's a good question. Okay. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. It kicked me out. The delights of living in a bandwidth challenged area. Have you got me back now, everybody?
Yes, you look good. So we had to lino it back. That was quick, so that was good.
Yeah, well, it kicked me out. That happens with Google Hangouts and here because we do have a few bandwidth issues. Okay, sorry, let me dive on. If anyone gets the chance, please put things on the line of it. Let me just refresh the page just to make sure. Refreshing's happening very slowly here at the moment. Did I give you the wrong link, by the way, everybody? No, I didn't. Good. Okay, I'm going to move on because I'm probably running out of time. Okay, so we've all got our own personal challenges, both as educators and people, and the impacts of these are cumulative. So our personal challenges can be the straw that breaks the camel's back for how well we're able to bounce back as educators. And some of those that I've had, I was about the shyest kid you could ever meet. I would never put my hand up in class. I would never speak unless someone spoke to me. And I've turned into a teacher. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it did. I've also, at work, had bullying happen a few times. I got close to burnout. I was working with very disengaged and sometimes threatening students who would pick up a chair and threaten me with it and things. And that's a bit off-putting. And last year I was completely off the radar for several months because I was sick. And something that's a really major one, I think, for most of us, is the changes that happen. And particularly here, the public vocational education system has gone to requiring us to be competitive. And that puts pressure on us to both market the courses and teach more and more students in less and less time with more and more paperwork. And a couple of very personal ones. I live in a bushfire-prone area, and that, through summer, means that I'm always alert to local bushfires. And we've got a current threat in our very small community that there's going to be open-cut mining less than a kilometre away from where we all live, which is quite scary when you live in a rural area. Okay. So, a few years ago, when I was doing almost permanent battle at work on a whole host of fronts, a colleague said to me that he thought I was very resilient. I was a bit surprised and quite flattered. I'd never really thought of myself that way at all. If I thought about it at all, I just thought I was stubborn. But since then, I've thought about and reflected on resilience quite a lot. And it's interesting that during that period when I was so beleaguered at work, I found refuge in my PLN, in the global connections I was making, and in presenting online. And During those nights when I couldn't sleep because of all those stresses at work, I had a lot of sleepless nights during that time. There's always someone from my PLN online, via Twitter, somewhere in the world for me to talk to. And I think that saved my life in more ways than one. And they're all different, so, and some of them have just got more resilience than others. But I'm totally sure that however resilient we are, we can always improve on it and support others in improving their own resilience. Different things work for different people. And last week I posted on both Twitter and Facebook asking for a bit of input from some of my PLN. And as you can see, I had quite a few replies. I couldn't squeeze them all on, and I did get some after I'd finalised the presentation, so they're not all there. And don't feel you've got to read them all because I did something with them. And picked out sort of keywords, and it's interesting that the ones that came up the most were PLN, sharing, connected, positive, all those sorts of words that sit very well with me and probably with most of you as well. And just before we move on to the next one, I'm just going to have a look and see if anybody's managed to post anything on the line of it. Looks like it hasn't come through yet. If you have, if you guys can post later if necessary, it'd be lovely to see these, and I can add them to the information for later. Okay, some of the things that have helped me personally, and I'm talking very much in this from a very personal perspective because, as I said, everybody's different, but some of the things that work for other people will chime with you. What's helped me a lot has obviously been my PLN. There's always something to talk to, someone to talk to, sorry, and that fosters that sense of connectedness and gives us lots of opportunities to share the good and the bad. Trouble shared is trouble halved, as the old saying goes. I've also got a few close colleagues at work that I can share my stresses with, and that's great because, you know, they know the environment, they know what we're all experiencing. Something that helps me a lot too is always learning, exploring, experimenting, being an innovator, stepping out of my comfort zone, always. And I guess today is stepping out of my comfort zone really because I have never used Google Hangout for this sort of thing before. I tend to be a Blackboard Collaborate person. I very much like to give something back to support my colleagues in PLN when I can, because that makes me feel good, and it's good for, I guess, good for my self-esteem, as well as the fact that I really like helping other people. I think I know my strengths, and I know what I'm not good at, and I don't feel obliged to always do the things that I'm not good at to make myself better at them. Standing by my principles is really important, and saying no when I need to. My other half, Phil and I have been together for over 40 years. We're both educators, we're both tech heads, and that helps immensely because we talk the same language. And Phil's been an immense support through all my trials and tribulations. The place where we live is really important for me because it's 25 acres of peaceful semi-bush with lots of wildlife, beautiful sunsets and skies. And we grow a lot of our own food, which we cook and eat. And those last two provide me with some balance and some me time, which I think is hugely important in being resilient. Okay, now I've got another line of it here. Which, find the link, Joe. Yes, and apologies, I suspect I've provided the wrong link to start with. Anyway, if anybody wants to go to either or both of those links and post the answers to the questions, that would be fabulous. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Okay. So, how can we be more resilient and how can we help other people? Because remember, if we help ourselves and help other people, ultimately we're helping our students. So for me, resilience comes from lots of things. Connections and community. And I feel I'm part of a global community, and I think everyone with a global PLN feels the same. Support networks, PLN, mentors, my colleagues at work, all of those things, and having some sort of balance, not being, yes, I mean, we're all a bit manic about being good at what we do and producing good work for students and helping students, but we have to remember ourselves as well. Having good self-esteem. And I spent a lot of my life feeling I was useless at anything. But over the last 17 years since I've been teaching, I've realised I'm actually quite good at it. And I still find it difficult to say that I'm good at something. And I think that's perhaps something to do with all of us and the way we're brought up. Self-knowledge, knowing yourself, is really helpful. Always doing something new and always learning, always learning. We're all different, so the things that help us develop resilience are not the same for everyone. So, next question. Keep throwing questions at you guys. What could you do to become more resilient yourself and to support your colleagues to be more resilient? What I would love you to do when you leave this session is to reflect on what works for you in being resilient. And if you're a blogger, then blog about it. And although I haven't blogged very much recently, due to all sorts of reasons, I will post in the next day or two about this session. And I would love you to think about how to inspire yourself and others to develop greater resilience. Make a plan. How can you foster resilience? And then share your plan with your PLN. Use whatever platform works for you and them. I do use 3 of those. I don't use Instagram, but I know a lot of people are using it for sharing. And I do have Google Plus, but I don't use it often. And Twitter's still my favourite. I love Twitter. I've been on Twitter since 2008. And I do use Facebook a lot these days because there are people I want to connect with who don't do Twitter. Also, Facebook's a great one because more and more we're getting our students using Facebook in groups with their lecturers. And okay, that doesn't work if your students are too young, but I'm starting to get my colleagues using closed groups because the students are comfortable with Facebook, and it's fine for me to be out of my comfort zone, but if I can leave my students in theirs for some of the stuff, it helps. Okay, carry out your plan and share the outcomes. Be resilient. Help your colleagues to be resilient. That way we can all better support our students and help them be resilient in the face of their own challenges. Those are some of the links that they're things I've collected over the years, and obviously they start with the 2 that started the thoughts on this presentation. And thank you all for coming. And thank you, Shelley, Sarah, Jake, and Judy, who I wasn't sure who was going to be in that place there, for the stupendous task in the organisation. And obviously, as you can see, next up is Phil, in about half an hour, I think. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free. And I think Judy may have collected some. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which I think it's the right time to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. I want to say it was really moving for me. I really loved everything at the beginning you had to say, and it really meant a lot to me. I'm almost in tears, actually. I'm trying to keep it together for this conference because people are going to start thinking I cry at all these conferences, but it was so incredibly moving. So I'll let Judy go back. I know there was a lot of comments, and people did put stickies on the Linowit, and I don't know if you can see them now, but there's a few there.
Yes, I can, and I will do a quick, if I can make it happen again, quickly share it. Hopefully you can see this now. If I'm logged in, I should be able to move that sticky. There we go. Okay, so we've got a few there on the resilient one, and I think there are some on the other one as well when I just looked. So let's just pull the other one up as well. Ah, that's interesting. Please just, yeah, it's just on the one. That's cool. It was an experiment. I'm glad that some people managed to add a few things because I do like getting some sort of audience interaction going, and I'm pleased that this is a way we can do it with these Hangouts. Okay. The networks and being optimistic and asking for help, sharing, yes. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing again because if there are more questions. Here we go.
I think there's more comments, and I'm going to read a comment actually by Judy. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure you weren't muted anymore. But do you want to read it? Your comment to her? Oh, okay.
Sure. All right. I wrote, it is generally hard as a teacher because unlike other professions, we rarely get to see the fruits of our labor. Very few of us ever do. And we really should support each other. Speak up about some of the good things our colleagues are doing, not just the bad things.
Absolutely. Love it, Judy.
We have a lot of wonderful comments here. Annabella was saying, oh yes, really big challenges. Her answer is challenging herself and her students to get into new and different things. Jake loves doing his comics with his students, and he loves your brush fire analogy about being resilient. Irby was saying that he understands. He grew up in the shadow of a steel mill in California. It's kind of like remote. Lisa mentioned knowing I'm doing what helps students, even if others are intimidated by my enthusiasm. I love having a PLN to turn to for reinforcement. I agree. Yes, PLN keeps you centered. Some of the sticky notes were really cool. This sounds terrible, but feeling like I'm working too hard. My higher up colleague is out of the door every day, rarely goes to a PD, not active on social media, and my challenge is comparing myself to her. I shouldn't even care, but I do. No, you shouldn't compare. Challenging myself and students, looking for collaborative projects to get into with my students. One person is an Eat Whining ambassador, um, always connecting, getting into something. Ask for help. One of our people said, ask for help. Share your tales of woes. It makes it a lot easier. Others are always probably in the same boat. You'd be surprised. Develop a very strong social network. It helps a lot, especially in those long hours at night. Keep working on your skills. One person was unemployed for 2 years, but believed it would change, and it did. You just got to keep reinventing yourself and grow. So yeah, thank you, Joe. That was a wonderful talk.
Okay, I'm just going to suggest that everybody, if they haven't already done so, shares their Twitter or whatever their PLN favourite connection link is in Chatwings, so that we can all increase our PLNs right now.
A good idea. That's a very good idea.
And I've just put it in the text as well. Okay, thank you everybody, and thank you Shelley, and that was a bit of a roller coaster.
It came out beautifully. A lot of people were very, very moved. So you'll have to go back and really take a look at the chat box and definitely the Twitter comments as well.
Yeah, I haven't got Twitter open because I was worried about the bandwidth, so I haven't been looking at any tweets, so I will go back and check the tweets.
No problem. That's a good idea.
Yeah.